Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Nathaniel. When I finalized my divorce, even though I saw it coming in bits and pieces over the past year, nothing prepared me for the silence that followed when it actually happened. The night after the divorce was finalized, I checked into a cheap motel. While I stood at the front desk waiting for my key, the receptionist looked at me, and what she said changed how I saw everything I had experienced in the past years. I remember the day my wife told me she was leaving the marriage. It was a quiet Wednesday, and I had just come back from work, tired, expecting the usual silence we'd been living in for months. But the moment I opened the front door, I could see that Erica was sitting on the couch with her hands clasped in her lap, like she'd been waiting for me. From her posture, her stillness, and the way her eyes locked on mine the second I walked in, I knew something was coming, but I didn't expect what was coming. She didn't ask how my day was. Instead, she went straight to the point like she'd rehearsed it a dozen times in her head. This marriage isn't working. You know it. That was the first thing she said. I froze right there in the doorway. For a second, I couldn't even process what she meant. I just stood there, staring at her, trying to read her face. Was she trying to stir up something? Was she hurting? Was this a joke? But she was calm. I couldn't figure out what to say to her before she pulled out a folder from beside her. Thin, neatly placed papers inside, divorce papers. She handed them to me and said she'd already spoken to a lawyer. Told me we didn't have to drag things through court since we didn't have kids and not much shared property. My lawyer can talk to yours, she said. We'll keep it clean. I opened my mouth to respond, to say something, but nothing came out. Because in that moment I could see it in her eyes. She was already gone, both physically and emotionally. She'd left me long before I noticed. So I nodded. What else could I do? I told her I'd get in touch with a lawyer, and that was it. I just kept thinking to myself, how did we get here? Even with the cracks showing lately. I believed if we held on a little longer, we could fix it. I thought love meant staying, even when it's hard. But for her, love meant leaving when it got too heavy. That night, I sat and thought about the whole thing for hours. Looking back on that last year of our marriage, I can honestly say that things didn't fall apart all at once. I didn't take notice until everything was just barely holding together. At first, I thought we were just going through a rough patch. Every couple does, right? But as the months went on, it became harder to ignore how far apart we'd drifted, even while sharing the same roof. Our first big fight was on a Friday night. Erica started saying she was going out with her friends, what she called a girls' night. The first time, I didn't think much of it. I figured she deserved a break to blow off some steam and reconnect with her female friends. But then the next Friday came, and the next, and suddenly it was a regular thing. That alone might not have bothered me, but it was the way she did it that set off alarms in my mind. She started dressing differently, clothes tighter, heels higher, perfume heavier. Then she started coming home drunk. And when I tried to talk to her about it, she brushed me off like I was being dramatic. The third Friday she did it, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I told her plain and clear, if you walk out that door like this again, don't bother calling yourself my wife. I was trying to protect what was left of us. But she didn't see it that way. She snapped at me like I was the problem. Called me a loser. Told me if I put half as much energy into making more money as I did into telling her what to wear or when to come home, maybe we wouldn't be living an average life. That was the first time I'd ever heard her talk to me like that. And honestly, it crushed me. After that fight, she stopped going out on Fridays. But that didn't mean things got better. If anything, they got worse. The air in the house changed. She started nitpicking everything. Everything I did seemed to annoy her. She barely looked at me. And when she did, it was with this quiet resentment, like I was the reason her life wasn't what she imagined it would be. She made sure I knew, over and over again, that she didn't sign up for average. That word started haunting me. She claimed the life we lived was average, as if being steady, consistent, loyal meant I had failed. The strange thing is, she had always been okay with our life before. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable and paid our bills. I didn't understand what changed. Or maybe I just didn't want to. By the time she handed me those divorce papers, we had already been sleeping in the same bed like strangers. No conversations that went beyond pass the salt or what time's your appointment. And intimacy? I tried. I really did. But every time I reached for her, she pulled away like I was a stranger begging for something she had no intention of giving. So yeah, it wasn't one big thing. It was a long, slow unraveling. And by the end, the only thing we really shared anymore was the silence. In the days after Erica told me she wanted a divorce, everything moved fast, but at the same time, it all felt slow. I got in touch with my lawyer, even though a part of me still hoped she'd change her mind. She didn't. She was calm, steady, and clear every time we spoke. It was like she'd rehearsed her lines, already living in the aftermath while I was still trying to catch my breath. When negotiations began, she said she wasn't after my assets, wasn't trying to make things messy. But then, she made it clear she wanted to keep the house. Said she loved it, said it felt like home. I don't know what hurt more, her asking me to leave the home we built together or realizing she was more attached to the house than the man she built it with. My lawyer didn't take that lightly. He immediately wanted to push back, to argue that I had every right to stay. He said we could file for an equal split or even force a sale. But I just sat there, staring at the floor, thinking, what's the point? I couldn't fight for a home that no longer felt like mine. Every room already felt empty, even when we were still living under the same roof. I told my lawyer not to argue. Let her have the apartment. If she was done with the marriage, then dragging out who got what would just be dragging myself through more pain. I wanted peace. In the end, she kept the apartment. I took the car and the investments I had set up over the years. That was enough for me. I packed my things up slowly and carefully. Every item I touched felt heavier than it should have. The drawers, the closet, the kitchen, all filled with pieces of a life that no longer belonged to me. I boxed up what I needed, donated some things, and locked the rest away in a storage unit. I didn't call my friends to help. I didn't want to hear the pity in their voices or explain things over and over. I was already tired. I decided I'd stay in a cheap motel for a little while, just until I could sort out a proper apartment. I just needed somewhere quiet, somewhere to sit with my thoughts without feeling like I was in someone else's story. I told myself it would only be temporary, but part of me knew I needed that stillness. I needed to be alone, not lonely. There's a difference. The night I arrived at the motel, I just wanted a key, a bed, and a place where no one knew my name. I remember pulling into the motel's parking lot with my trunk full of boxes and my heart heavier than it had ever been. Inside the motel lobby, it was quiet. The lighting was dim, and the air smelled faintly of old pine-scented cleaner and coffee. The receptionist looked to be in her early 30s with a calm presence and soft voice. She glanced up as I stepped in, took one look at my face, and didn't push. Instead, while searching for a key to an available room, she simply asked, "Rough day?" I gave a weak nod. "Finalized my divorce today." She didn't flinch as she just slid the key across the counter and said something that hit me harder than anything my ex had said in months. Some endings don't mean failure. Sometimes they just mean you stopped lying to yourself. I froze. Deep down, I knew she was right. I didn't say anything else. Just nodded, took the key, and walked off to my room. But those words followed me. As I dropped my bags, lay on that stiff mattress, and stared at the ceiling. I kept thinking, was I lying to myself all along? Pretending things weren't as broken as they were? Hoping she'd come back to who she used to be, when maybe even she didn't know who that was anymore. Over the next 2 weeks, I stayed in that motel. The receptionist never pried. She just said good morning when I passed by. Gave me an extra cup of coffee once or twice. One evening, when I was sitting outside on one of those cheap metal benches, she joined me. By the time I finally found an apartment and moved out, the receptionist and I had built something steady. Not a romance. Not yet. Just a kind of understanding. She'd come by my place sometimes, usually on a Sunday, and sit on the porch with me in silence. After the noise my marriage ended in, silence became a strange kind of healing. It's easy to catch feelings for someone new when you've come out of a long, cold relationship. The warmth feels like sunlight after a long winter, and you want to run toward it. But I remind myself to take things slow, to breathe, to appreciate someone without rushing to label them. The receptionist is someone I respect because she showed me kindness without knowing a thing about me. And that's why I don't force it. Not with her. Not with myself. Some endings, like she said, really don't mean failure. Sometimes they're just the start of being honest. Almost a year after the divorce, I found out the truth. And let me tell you, nothing hits quite like realizing the person you once built your whole life around had already walked out of the marriage before even telling you. It just took her body a little longer to catch up. I wasn't looking for answers anymore. I had accepted what happened. I was already in a better place. But the truth has a way of finding you when you least expect it. It came through a mutual friend during a conversation over lunch. That's when I learned Erica had been seeing someone else even before she served me the divorce papers. All those girls' nights? They weren't just drinks and gossip with friends. She was with him. She'd already checked out of the marriage and was trying to line up her next chapter, like I was some draft she could delete when the story got boring. Apparently, she thought this new guy was going to sweep her off her feet, marry her, give her that more exciting life she kept accusing me of not being able to provide. But things didn't go the way she imagined. From what I heard, he didn't take her seriously once the divorce was final. He strung her along for a while, made promises he never intended to keep, and when she started pushing for something more permanent, like marriage, he backed away. They fought a lot. Eventually, they broke up. It didn't end with the fairy tale she was chasing. It ended the way people do when they build something on lies. She never reached out to reconnect or express regret. And, to be honest, even if she had, it wouldn't have mattered. I wouldn't have opened that door again. I had already gone to therapy. I had unpacked everything. My pain, my silence, my guilt, even the way I let things slide, thinking love would fix it all. I had to sit with my mistakes and hers and figure out who I was without her voice in my ear. To be honest, after the divorce, it felt like I was walking around with a hole in my heart. Everything hurt. Every thought was loud. Every silence was louder. But looking back now, I can honestly say I've come a long way from the man who checked into that cheap motel, carrying a suitcase in one hand and a broken heart in the other. I'm not the same man who sat on the edge of that motel bed wondering what went wrong and if any of it had been real. Therapy changed me. It wasn't easy opening up. At first, I didn't even know what to say. Saying, I'm fine, even though I wasn't. But week after week, I started to unpack things I didn't even realize I had been carrying for years. My therapist helped me untangle all the guilt, the confusion, the feeling that maybe I wasn't enough. She helped me realize that just because someone didn't value me doesn't mean I wasn't valuable. That hit hard. One of the biggest shifts came when I stopped asking why Erica left and started asking myself what I actually deserved. I don't think I'll remarry again, not because I'm afraid, but because I've made peace with solitude. I've learned to enjoy my own company. But I'll say this, I'm open to a relationship if it's with a woman who sees me clearly, who values what I bring, not just what I can provide, but who I am. I won't settle for being tolerated. I want to be appreciated, respected, loved, not managed. So yeah, I've moved past the pain. Not because I forgot it, but because I faced it. I'm not angry at Erica anymore. I understand now, some people leave when they don't recognize the version of themselves they see beside you. And that's okay. What matters is that I finally recognize myself again. Thank you for watching. Share with us what you think.